In the soft glow of lanterns, deep within an ancient tea shop, hands once trained for blades and the delicate art of tea found a new kind of gentleness. Fan Shenji knelt behind Yan Zheng, her fingers carefully applying a healing salve to the scarred skin of his shoulder. The air was thick with the memory of their recent, unintended kiss. His proximity, the soft brush of her breath near his neck, created a tension that was both awkward and intimate. He winced slightly from the sting of the medicine, and she whispered, "Hold still. It's healing." Her voice was barely a breath. As Shenji reached for a fresh cloth, a small, folded piece of paper slipped from her sleeve. It fluttered to the floor, unfolding just enough for Yan Zheng to glimpse the childish scrawl upon it. He politely averted his eyes, but it was too late. A flush of embarrassment crept up Changyu's neck. She snatched the letter, a private message to her late parents she carried as a keepsake. "Don't look," she said, her voice sharp with panic. "It's nothing." She stood abruptly, flustered and exposed. Secrets, it seemed, like salve, could slip out at the most inconvenient moments, leaving cheeks warmer than any fire. Outside, the last of the winter chill clung to the night air. In the moonlit courtyard, suspicion lurked in the shadows. Changyu's uncle and his wife pressed their ears against the paper window, their whispers full of doubt. "A fake marriage," the uncle hissed. "I'll wager there's been no consummation." Inside, Changyu's sharp ears caught the faint rustle. She shot a look at Yan Zheng, a silent signal passing between them. With a quick, shared nod, the performance began. "Husband," Shenji called out, her voice laced with a playful, suggestive tone. "Come closer." Yan Zheng, catching on instantly, played his part. He thumped the floor to mimic movement, letting out a dramatic groan for good measure. The eavesdroppers leaned in closer, their faces alight with gossip. Seizing the moment, Shenji grabbed a nearby basin of water. With a mischievous grin, she flung the window open and sent a cold, arching spray into the darkness. Yelps of shock and angry curses followed as her drenched relatives fled into the night. Closing the window, she and Yan Zheng looked at each other, and a bubble of laughter escaped them, both a quiet, shared moment of genuine connection. Wiping her hands, she said with a hint of satisfaction, "They'll think twice now." They had answered suspicion not with truth, but with noise and water, turning performance into protection, and protection into something that felt almost real. The next morning, the harsh light of day brought a different kind of pain. At the pawnshop, the indifferent clerk delivered the news with a shrug. Her mother's silver hairpin, the last tangible piece she had of her, had already been sold. The world seemed to fade around Shenji. Her fingers gripped the edge of the counter, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She walked home through streets where melting snow gave way to the first plum blossoms of spring. The petals fell like soft, pink tears. She found herself drawn to an old tree from her childhood, a secret hiding place where she used to stash candies. Reaching into its familiar hollow, her fingers brushed against something delicate, a dried flower, a keepsake from her mother she'd forgotten was there. The weight of her loss settled upon her. She sank to the ground, leaning against the sturdy trunk, holding the fragile flower close. Silent tears traced paths down her cheeks, mingling with a newfound resolve. A moment later, her younger sister found her, wrapping her in a quiet, comforting hug. Some losses, she realized, cut far deeper than any blade. A hairpin gone felt like a mother's touch erased. But here, in the hollows where children hid their sweets, she found the strength to stand again. Later that afternoon, warm sunlight streamed into the tea shop, illuminating a small altar dedicated to her parents. A stick of incense burned, its smoke curling around their portrait. Shenji stood before it, whispering an apology for losing the hairpin, for failing to protect her mother's memory. As she finished her quiet prayer, she sensed a presence. Yan Zheng stood in the doorway, a silent observer. He stepped forward, his expression unreadable, and held out his hand. Nestled in his palm was a silver hairpin, gleaming in the soft light. "I found this at a bookstall," he said, his voice low. "I thought it suited you." Shenji stared, her breath catching in her throat. It was her mother's hairpin. She recognized it instantly. Disbelief warred with a wave of overwhelming gratitude. Her eyes, wide and questioning, met his. She took the hairpin, her fingers trembling slightly as she carefully pinned it back into her hair. In the small mirror nearby, she saw her reflection, whole and composed once more. She turned to him, the weight of his gesture settling between them. "Thank you," she whispered, the words filled with unspoken emotion. Truly, he simply nodded, his gaze steady and unwavering. No more words were needed. They shared a bowl of tea in comfortable silence, the steam rising between them like a newly forged bond. In ancient times, gifts were not always grand gestures. Sometimes a returned hairpin, a quiet, thoughtful act, could mend more than just wounds. In that moment, she had reclaimed her mother's memory, and he had reclaimed a piece of her trust. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see what happens next in the world of Blade of the Dawn.